Every few years, something changes in the tech world that actually matters to regular people. Not just faster processors or better cameras, but something that affects how safe and private your life is. In 2026, that change is happening inside the hardware itself. For the first time, the devices people buy every day are being built with a specific purpose in mind, and that purpose is protecting you from AI surveillance. This article is about what that means, how it works, and why it matters for every single person who owns a phone, a laptop, or any connected device. To understand why this is a big deal, you first need to understand what AI surveillance actually is at a basic level. Most people have a vague sense that they are being tracked online, but the reality is more detailed and more personal than most people realize. AI surveillance systems work by collecting data about you from as many places as possible. Your face, captured by cameras in public. Spaces. Your voice picked up by smart devices. Your browsing habits tracked across websites. Your location recorded by your phone. Your typing patterns, your purchase history, your social connections. On its own, each piece of data seems small, but AI systems are very good at combining thousands of small pieces of data into a detailed picture of who you are, what you do, where you go, and what you think. Companies use this to target advertising. Governments use it to monitor populations. Bad actors use it for manipulation and control. And for a very long time, the devices people used every day were quietly helping this process happen, with the person holding the device having almost no say in it. That is the problem that 2026 hardware is finally starting to solve. The first and most important thing happening in 2026 hardware is the introduction of dedicated privacy chips. These are small processors built directly into devices, whose only job is to handle sensitive data without ever letting it leave the device. Think about what your phone does when it recognizes your face to unlock. It processes your facial data, compares it to a stored reference, and decides whether to unlock. In older devices, this kind of processing could happen on remote servers, meaning your facial data was being sent somewhere outside your control. Dedicated privacy chips do all of this processing inside a sealed hardware environment on the device itself. The data never travels anywhere. It is processed, used, and discarded entirely within the chip. Even the main operating system cannot directly reach inside that sealed environment. This matters enormously because the entire business model of AI surveillance depends on data leaving your device and reaching systems that can combine it with data from millions of other people. If the sensitive data never leaves your device in the first place, the surveillance system cannot get started. The privacy chip breaks the chain at the very first step. Alongside privacy chips, 2026 devices are introducing something even more straightforward and powerful, which is physical hardware disconnects for cameras and microphones. This is not a software setting. It is not a toggle in a menu. It is a physical switch or button that cuts the actual electrical power to the camera or microphone when you activate it. When there is no power going to a component, that component simply cannot work. No application can access it. No malware can trick it. No government tool can remotely activate it, because electricity is not reaching it. This sounds simple, and it is, and that simplicity is exactly what makes it so effective. Software can always be bypassed by other software, but you cannot hack the laws of physics. Several laptop makers and smartphone companies have introduced exactly this feature in 2026, and for people who have spent years worrying about whether their camera or microphone might be listening without their knowledge, this is the clearest and most trustworthy answer that has ever existed. You flip the switch, the power is cut, and nothing in the world can access that component until you flip it back. The next piece of the story is about what happens to data inside your device's memory. Your RAM, which is the working memory your device uses while it is running, holds a lot of sensitive information at any given moment. Private messages you're writing, websites you're browsing, passwords your applications are using, files you have open. For a long time, this memory was essentially unprotected. If someone with the right tools and access could read the contents of your RAM, they could see all of that information. New processors in 2026 solve this with full memory encryption. Every single piece of data sitting in your device's RAM is automatically encrypted using keys that are generated fresh every time the device starts and stored only inside the processor chip itself. If anyone tries to physically remove your memory chips and read them, they get nothing but scrambled data. The keys needed to unscramble it exist only inside the processor and disappear the moment power is cut. This closes a serious security hole that has existed since personal computers were first invented, and it removes one of the methods that surveillance systems have quietly used for years. Another way AI surveillance tracks people is through their network traffic, and this one is sneaky because it works even when your actual data is encrypted. Here's how it works. Even if nobody can read the content of what you're sending over the internet, they can still watch the pattern of your traffic. When you connect, how often you connect, how much data you send and receive, which servers you communicate with, and when. This pattern is surprisingly revealing. AI systems can analyze these patterns and build a behavioral fingerprint that identifies you across different networks and different devices, even without ever seeing your actual data. 2026 hardware is addressing this with network chips that deliberately randomize and vary the patterns of outgoing traffic. They add small variations to timing and packet sizes that make behavioral analysis much harder. They also handle encrypted routing at the hardware level, which is faster and more secure than doing it through software. This hardware-level approach to network privacy is something that no software tool has been able to fully replicate, and it represents a genuine step forward in making everyday internet use more private. Perhaps the most meaningful development for everyday users is what is happening with on-device AI processing. For the past several years, using any AI feature on your devices almost always meant your data traveling to a company's servers. You asked your voice assistant something, and your voice went to a data center. You used an AI photo tool, and your photos went to the cloud. You used AI writing help, and your text was sent to a remote server. Even when companies promised not to store this data, it was still leaving your device and traveling through infrastructure that was not in your control. The new AI processing chips in 2026 consumer devices are powerful enough to run real and useful AI models entirely on the device itself. Your voice assistant hears you and processes your words locally. Your photos are enhanced locally. Your writing suggestions are generated locally. The AI capability is just as useful, but your data never goes anywhere. It stays on your device, in your hands, under your control. This is a structural change in how AI features work, and it removes the privacy cost that has always come with using AI tools on consumer devices. There's also progress happening in how devices verify their own integrity. This might sound technical, but the practical meaning is simple. One of the ways surveillance systems get access to devices is by installing hidden software at a very deep level below the operating system in what is called firmware. This kind of compromise is extremely hard to detect because normal security tools run on top of the operating system and cannot easily see what is happening below it. New hardware in 2026 includes chips that continuously check the integrity of the device's software throughout the entire time it is running, not just at startup. If anything unexpected appears in the firmware or operating system, the system detects it and alerts the user. This makes it significantly harder to install the kind of deep, hidden surveillance software that has been used by various actors for years, and much easier to detect if someone tries. It is worth being honest about what all of this hardware cannot do, because no technology is a perfect solution to every problem. These hardware features protect you from specific kinds of surveillance, mainly the kind that involves accessing your device remotely or intercepting data as it travels. They do not protect you from surveillance that happens at the application level when you voluntarily use services that collect your data. If you use social media apps, shopping platforms, or any service that tracks your behavior as part of how it operates, better hardware does not stop that. The hardware developments of 2026 are real and meaningful, but they work best as part of a broader approach to privacy that includes being thoughtful about which apps and services you use and what data you share with them. The bigger picture here is actually encouraging. The fact that hardware companies are competing on privacy features in 2026 tells you something important about what people are demanding. Not long ago, privacy was a concern mostly limited to a small group of technically minded people. The general public did not seem to prioritize it when buying devices, but that has changed. Years of news stories about data breaches, government surveillance programs, and AI-powered tracking have made ordinary people genuinely aware of and concerned about their privacy. People are now asking where their data goes before they buy a device. They want to know if their camera can be secretly accessed. They want to understand what AI features are doing with their information. Hardware makers are responding to this. Demand and competition is driving real innovation. This shift in market incentives is as important as any individual technical feature because it means the industry's financial interests are finally starting to align with protecting users rather than exploiting their data. So here's the full picture from start to finish. AI surveillance is a real and growing problem that affects ordinary people in ways they often cannot see. It works by collecting data from devices, combining that data using AI, and building detailed profiles without the knowledge or consent of the people being tracked. For years, consumer hardware was essentially a tool that made this easier. The devices people carried and used every day were quietly participating in surveillance systems that most people never agreed to. In 2026, that is changing. Hardware makers are building privacy chips that process sensitive data locally and never send it anywhere. They are building physical power disconnects that make camera and microphone surveillance physically impossible when activated. They are encrypting memory so that even direct hardware attacks cannot extract your data. They are building smarter network chips that make behavioral tracking harder. They are putting powerful enough AI processors in your data ever leaving your hands. And they are building integrity verification systems that detect hidden surveillance software before it can do damage. None of this is a complete and final victory against surveillance, but it is the most serious and meaningful hardware-level response to AI surveillance that has ever existed in consumer technology. The devices of 2026 are, for the first time, genuinely trying to be on your side. And that is a change worth understanding.